Ariella, welcome to Spark TV.
Oh, thank you for having me, Danielle. I've been really looking forward to this.
Same. We have only recently met,
Yes.
but we've been on a few calls together and it's been so good. So I'm so excited to share your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, so far Spark's been amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Let's kick off by telling everyone who you are and what you do.
So my name is Ariella Lew. I am a pediatric nurse consultant and I specialize in child development, basically. And my company works with parents, works with schools, works with allied health professionals to, I guess, navigate the journey of any child. I think we discussed this once before. We see an individual child as being an entire world and that every family is unique. So we try and help people on their journey in a way that's right for them.
I love that because I'm not a mum, but I have many a mum in the Spark community. So always having these conversations, and I know how different everyone's journey is, but B, how much support it does actually take. So is there anything specific, or if I was a mum who was having a challenge, could I come to you for anything and just chat?
Yeah, absolutely. So we sort of say like we are your first port of call. And if we don't have the resources within us to help you, we will connect you to people that can. And we will educate and empower you to be able to get the answers that you're looking for.
I love that. I love that so much. So how did you get into this?
So when I was, I guess, back when I, qualified as a nurse, I qualified in England, as my accent may give away, just a little bit.
Yeah.
When I qualified in London and I worked as part of the National Health Service. I worked in the private sector for a little bit. And from the time I did my training, my training was sort of, we work in all areas of child development. So we do some time in a creche and we do some time in a school and we do some time in special ed. And it really allows you to see every side of it. But what I always loved was the community parts of my placement. So either the community nursing, the special needs school, I adored, like I really enjoyed it. And I just saw this massive gap of where, even if there's nothing going on with your kid and nothing wrong, just navigating that you suddenly have this little human that you're responsible for that doesn't come with an instruction manual. And you just kind of got to figure your way. And, even when I had, my daughter, and I'm in theory a child development expert, I still had to feel my way. So yes, okay, there were certain bits that might have been easier for me because I knew the science, but there's no enrollment manual for this. There's a million training courses for the birth, but there's and yeah, there might be stuff specifically on sleep, but there's no handbook to teach you this is your child and this is what your child needs. And once you're in a system, be that a hospital system or an education system or an NDIS system, you're in a system. So you can only get the services that you can get within a system. And one size does not fit all. And I was really passionate about being able to plug the right people into the right supports for them. Not just like, let's tick the box and put you away. Well, not that I'm saying there aren't wonderful nurses and wonderful hospitals and whatever else, but it is different. And that was really the inspiration, together with that all kind of coincided around the time that a lot of my friends started to have children. We're going back sort of 15 or so years. A lot of my friends were starting to have children, and I was sort of informally giving them advice and seeing what was going on for them. And it was actually, I still credit him to this day. I think he doesn't realize I mention him on every podcast I'm ever on, but it was a friend of ours who, they were sort of struggling with the transition to parenthood. And I went around and spent some time with his lovely wife, and he phoned afterwards and said to my husband, he's like, don't know what your wife did, but there's a business there.
Wow,
And
really?
that was all around the time that I was kind of thinking, what's next for me? I want to get out of the hospitals. And I was sort of working part in hospitals and part for a not-for-profit organization that worked with children with life-threatening illness. And it was kind of all trying to put this all together and work out, what do I do? And then no sooner did I get it going in London, then my husband was headhunted over here to Melbourne. And so kind of picked it up and dropped it off. And I never could have imagined it would become what it's become.
Oh my God, that is so incredible. I love that you're so passionate about it. You were just out there solving this problem already before you were actually monetizing it.
Yes. But then
That's so cool.
once you start monetizing it, I've discovered it's not as fun anymore.
I know. No one tells you that. There's like there's a great Instagram quote probably about that, like, don't monetize your hobby. Whatever you do, don't monetize
Seriously.
your hobby. You'll live to hate it.
Expensive hobby, I'll tell you that.
That is hilarious. I love it. So how did you find navigating going from being an employee then to a business owner?
Well, I think the kind of irony of it all is, whilst for 15 years I've kind of said I have my own business, my husband would tell you that I've really only thought of it as a business maybe for the last 2 years. Before that, I was kind of very much like a one-man band. I did my thing, did all my own invoicing, did all my own diary management, did all my own, all. And I don't think I really thought of myself as a business owner. I just kind of thought, like, that's my job. Like, that's what I do. And I'm self-employed.
Yes.
And that was that. And that actually, I love that. I love the fact that I choose my own hours. I love the fact that like I am not a mornings person at all.
Either.
I love the fact that my day starts at 10 o'clock because that's when I say it starts.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't see clients before 10 because I just don't. And I don't want to, so I don't. So, you know, that wasn't difficult. I think when last year, and we've spoken about this briefly as well before, but I think last year when things sort of grew very quickly for me, I think where I struggled a little bit was I don't have a business background. That's not my zone of genius. My zone of genius is not financial spreadsheets. It's not, you know, I've learned on the job, but it's not, that's not who, like, I'm a medic. I want to help people. I like fighting systems. That's what I'm good at. Like that's where I shine. I do not shine at the business side.
I know, but it's so interesting though. You're right. Like when you're a one-man band, it doesn't bloody matter. You've just got to pick it all up and figure out everything, don't you?
And also when you're a one band, there's actually, I mean, there's costs. Obviously there are costs.
Yes.
But your costs really are things like petrol and stationery and maybe your phone. And, you know, once you're starting to look at, you've got people working with you, for you, subcontracting, that is like a whole different, and it's not about looking backwards, it's about looking forward and learning.
Absolutely.
But I think, you know, I think there's a lesson to be learned for everybody within when you're ready to take those next steps. And for me, I think when I was first ready, I had a 9-month-old baby. We were still mid-COVID. It was 2021.
Especially in Melbourne.
I was just in Melbourne. It was full on. I was feeling overwhelmed by some of the mundane, like like I said, like the invoicing, the bookings, the intake calls. I was finding that was encroaching on my time.
Yeah.
But I didn't. So I kind of planned like, okay, I'll get sort of a VA to help me a few hours a week. And it kind of went from that to this within a year to almost like this explosion.
Wow.
Of like multiple hours and lots of people. And if I had my time again, that probably needed to be planned and scaffolded better than it was.
Yeah, but it's interesting though. I think best laid plans never come to fruition.
Totally,
you know, like
totally. But I think, you know, I'm one of those people that's like, I see a possibility and I just want to jump in and do it, and I'll worry about
the how later.
The consequence the consequences later. So I think, you
Oh,
know, if we're talking from a business, I think
mm,
once it really became a business for me, and there were other people involved and other cost liabilities and other, I guess, professional liabilities as well,
mm,
that is a big jump.
yeah.
Not so much from being employed to not, but from when you don't have a business background,
Mm.
there's nowhere that kind of gives you a quick, you know, quick MBA in 5.
And
Here's
it has
an
to be in
MBA
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So we have.
Off you go. You know, that, you know, I'd say that's been challenging for me. But then again, like the people that I've met on my journey and the, you know, the people we've been able to help who wouldn't necessarily, they don't see the back end. They don't know what goes on at the back. And, you know, for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and that's kind of the magic, isn't it? You know, our
Yeah, totally.
customers just see their problem solved, and then we go home at night and have a glass of wine and cry, you know, because we've got to do all of the bloody things.
Right, right.
How did you find? I'm always interested. So, firstly, I love the point you made because so many businesses do start by people becoming a solo consultant or a solo freelancer. And then you're right, and it builds and builds. And then, oh shit, now I don't have enough time to do everything. I need a person. But I'm always interested to talk to people about team. So, the people on your team, because that's something I really struggle with. So I am not naturally a leader or a manager. I am a lone wolf. I can work my butt off, and you know, the harder I work, the better I results, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
But then you get to that stage where you're like, I cannot physically do it all. But I've had, you know, total ups and downs in terms of hiring people, retaining people, all like people have been the bane of my
Yeah.
existence. I'm always keen to ask you learnings, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, any wisdom that you can impart when it comes to people.
I think if I had one sort of gem that I would say,
Mm,
there are certain things you can teach and there are certain things you can't.
mm,
And know what you can't teach before you go into interview. You can't actually teach culture.
mm.
They either get it or they don't. You
Yeah.
either gel or you don't.
Yes.
In my experience, if you gel, you can teach most other things. Right? Like if you feel that they get you and they get the business and they get the values of the
Mm,
business, most of the rest will fall into place.
yes.
In
I
my
love
experience.
I love that because you're right. You can't like jump on a call and be like, here's the process I've made for how to interact with me and just be a good human. But you can teach someone to follow a process when it
Correct.
comes to basically
Correct.
anything else.
Correct. Correct.
Mm,
So provided that obviously in the shortlisting or HR or however you're recruiting, once you know what you want and you've got your, you know, KPIs and you've done that part properly,
mm,
then once you are in the interview and you're the boss, so it's up to you. It's
yeah.
not up to your HR consultant and it's not up to your recruitment manager. It, depending on how big you are, it's up to you.
Yes.
If you sit there and your gut is they are not the right fit, and I've had that a couple of times, and I'm sure you have too.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, you're like, but I gotta hire someone because I gotta sort this now.
Mm.
In my experience, that doesn't go well, and it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money down the drain.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right?
Totally.
When you sit there, I mean, like one of the people that and I never like saying they work for me, they work with me. I mean, they would say I'm their boss, but I don't use that terminology with them.
Yeah.
But one of the people actually that works with me as our NDIS coordinator, she applied for a different job. And I
Mm.
interviewed her for that. She was shortlisted and I interviewed her. And she got off the phone and I said to the person at the time who was doing recruitment with me, I said, this job's not for her, but I really like her.
Mm.
And I'm going to design something for her. Because
Wow.
there was another project that I knew was about to start.
Yeah.
And I knew that that particular project was going to need admin of its own. And I said she would be perfect for that. And like, she is, trained her up. She now is probably better you'd want her in an NDIS meeting rather than me.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I taught it to her, but her advocacy, her patience, she's probably nicer than me. Because
I don't believe it.
I think when you're a business owner, you've got to be tough.
Yeah.
On a
Yeah.
level, at least, you've got to be tough.
Mm.
So that's what I mean. Like I saw something in her. I'm not saying I've always got it right, but I saw something in her.
Mm.
And it's worked.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And I just could not agree more with your comment about trusting your gut. You're so right. Every time I've had somebody that hasn't worked out, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have hired them.
Right.
But yeah, you
Right.
kind of go,
And you've
well, this
almost
is,
like been trying to convince yourself that
yes.
it's all gonna it's just that they're new. It's
Yeah.
just that I didn't train them properly. But
Yeah.
actually, this was probably never a go from day one.
Oh, I know. It's so true.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So tell me as well. So you mentioned, so really when you started taking the business, I guess more seriously was when it had that explosion.
Yeah.
What caused that? How did it explode? What happened? Did you do anything specific or was it just time?
So don't really know. I think the chronology went something like this.
Mm,
In September 2020, I had my little girl,
yeah.
and I didn't take maternity leave, which was my choice. I didn't want to. My husband was taking paternity leave, and I, at that time, was doing my practice, but I had a very big client who were kind of sort of 50% of my week. But I
Mm.
just got to the point with that particular client that I'm like, actually, I don't want to be working for them anymore. If you bring this up with my husband, he'll be like, it was the nicest.
You can confirm. Yep.
So with like a 3-month-old baby, I handed in my notice. So
Wow.
financial security
Out the
gone,
window.
out the window. Finished. And then sort of I just was like, okay, let's kind of see what happens. And that organization has been so lovely, and I'm still involved with them, and I still do stuff for them. I just couldn't take being there to that amount of time. And so when she was about 5 months old, I left. I worked out my notice and I left. And then I sort of was doing it all on my own. And I guess it's that thing of like, if you build it, they will come, I think is part of what's happened. I think then I sort of was building it. And by kind of June sort of time, I was getting to a point where the admin, I was like, I'm only one person. I can't do all of this. And also by then she was a little bit older, and I did, I had one afternoon that I had her and whatever else before she went to childcare. And so that happened, and I took someone on who's amazing, and although isn't working for me in that capacity anymore, is still like our consultant for our practice management software, and is still, she knows the business well, so she guides me on lots of different things. Very grateful. And then I think word of mouth is a wonderful thing. And
Yes.
so as people started to know me or know friends that had used me, they would come in. I think the NDIS, there is just so much, and obviously we're in the middle of a review now, and I'll keep very quiet on that. But
Yeah.
suffice to say, I think there is so much that goes on where people are not treated fairly, and are not just by the NDIS, but by service providers also, that they've had a bad experience. And so to find someone that actually is decent, and it's actually they're in it for you, they're in it, and it's not just about the goals that are written on your NDIS plan or your sheet of paper, but they actually want to get you what you need, rather than, I think those providers are rare. And I think I'm very much like I always said, if I was a politician, I'd be a conviction politician. Like I won't advocate for things that I don't believe to be the right thing. And I think authenticity takes you a long way. So I think the growth in the NDIS has helped me. I think the fact that I've done, my strapline is I built the business one coffee at a time. And I literally did. I made it my business. I then in the last, and this is the thing, when you're busy growing, you don't have time to network at the same time. So I feel like that's kind of fallen off the radar. And I'd say this year in 2024, that's really where my focus is, going back to making sure the business groups all know me, the allied health, you just never know who's where. The allied health practitioners all know me, not just in my area, but further afield as well. They'll kind of think, oh, does that Ariella Lew? And even if it's not going to be me and the person's going to see one of my team, doesn't matter. Like, it actually, that doesn't matter. But that being a name that people recognize, which I feel like right in the space when I was growing and probably when I needed to do it the most, I wasn't doing it at all because there's only one person.
Wow.
I think that's, you know, one coffee at a time is the answer to your question.
I love it. So I have a similar life business philosophy, and that is I will just have more conversations than anyone else. I don't care if the person's potentially right or not. I'll just talk about what I do. And the more times I tell people what I do, the more likelihood it's right for them, or they know someone or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm most interested in your comment about word of mouth and referrals, and you have your customers or clients' best interest at heart, and you will go above and beyond to make sure they're okay. And you're talking about authenticity and being a good human, and that people haven't had good experiences with other service providers. That is every industry. You'll be surprised how far just doing what you said you were going to do, and and caring a little bit more than the other guy, you'll be shocked as to how far that will take you in business.
But you know what's so funny? When people say to me, like, that was just so nice of you, I'm like, but that, not why isn't everyone like that? But I'm just like, but everyone's like that. Like, why wouldn't you be? Like, what possible reason could you have to not be like that? Like, I'm not saying I'm the most amazing person in the world, but it literally doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And people are like, that's so nice that you like, sometimes we have clients whose kids are in hospital for procedures or whatever. So we make it our business to actually follow up and be like, well, and they're like, I can't believe you remembered. Of course we remember. Because we care.
Wow.
Like, I just, and I think that also comes down, and I learned this lesson growing up, from my dad, actually, who taught me everything I know. But I think that when you love what you do becomes who you are. Yes. And who you are becomes what you do, and you can't separate the two. Yes. So if Kids on Track disappeared tomorrow, I would still be doing this work. Yes. I would still be advocating for people, whether in the NDIS space or anywhere else. Because once it becomes part of who you are, and you can't, there comes a point where the line between the two is totally blurred. Yeah, wow. And I think for me, that's probably been my greatest strength and my greatest weakness.
Yeah, well, and that was literally, as you were saying that's the thing that popped into my mind was, is there a work-life balance? Or does it not even matter because this is what you live and breathe?
There is.
Okay.
There is, and I really try. And I really try. I really try and have times where I'm not. I actually had a conversation with my 3-year-old in the car the other day where the phone rang and I was driving her home and I didn't pick up the phone. And she said to me, she goes, "Who's phoning you and what do they want?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "But do I pick up the phone now?" And she said, "No, it's your time with me." Yeah. I made a rule. I made a rule for myself when she was born that I didn't answer the phone when I'm with her, and 80% of the time I stick to that. Wow. I don't work weekends. I just won't. I don't I try and put certain boundaries in place. I work 2 nights a week, and unless I'm about to go overseas or holiday or whatever, I don't do that. It's interesting you asked. I'm actually a work-life balance. We were away in October back home in London, and I was consulting like every night. So literally my day would start at 6 a.m. talking to like my staff because of the time difference, and I would be consulting till 1 a.m. Wow. And I said to my husband, I'm not doing this again. I would rather not go on holiday. Like this is not a break for me. And we're actually going away in a few weeks, again, to see family. And I've said to my team, it's 3 weeks. I will not consult. You guys can consult. And I know there's certain things you can't consult on. So for things you can't consult on, people will either wait or they won't. And you just have to have faith that that's going to be okay. But yeah, it's a balance, and it's a daily balance. You make the best decisions you can when you can, and you have to just recognize what are the things that are important. But yeah, work-life balance in terms of having, you know, working full-time, juggling a toddler, having time to see your friends, and making time for family that are overseas. Yeah, that's impossible. Something is going to give. Something always gives.
Well, and I love what you said, that it's a daily balance, because you're so right. Like, that changes each day. So some days it's the kids' day, right? And that is what I'm prioritizing. Other days, like, sorry, it's a work day. And it can. So when you say work-life balance, it doesn't need to be every day I have this zen, but we ebb and flow.
Like for me, like Wednesdays, I have my daughter in the morning. I wanted a day with her. She's still preschool. I have her in the morning, and then I have someone come and help me out for a few hours during the day. So I literally have 4 hours on a Wednesday. I'm at my desk, and both the morning and then the afternoon, evening, I'm with her. And you know what? It's probably the most stressful day of my week, although people would call it work-life balance. So it's work-life balance in the sense that I'm doing it all, whatever that even means. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Because I know if it was like, well, which one are you giving up? Then ultimately, if I want to take the stress out of it, I can't do any less hours on that day. So ultimately, what I'm going to give up is say, fine, you can do another diet childcare. And I really don't want to do that. So it's like, okay, sometimes work-life balance doesn't feel very balanced.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. And you're so right. And it all looks different. It looks different to every person.
Totally.
Oh, incredible. Well, I feel like we could talk all day, but let's wrap this podcast on. I always like to ask our guests, what is one last piece of advice, reflecting on your time in business, that you would give to another woman in business on this crazy journey we're on?
Find your people, not necessarily people that you have to pay, your people, and ask for help before you think you need it.
I love that. So true. I can't tell you how many times, and you're so right, it's not always a paid thing that you need to be a part of, but I know, as I've been in business about 10 years, 12 years now, and it's those times where I'm like, oh, I know if I call that person, they'll listen to me, and even just talking out loud at them, I know I'll solve this problem. Having your people and asking for help, that's spot on. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of pressure in all industries that when people say, have your people, the brain often goes to paid accountants, paid lawyers, paid business coaches, paid this, paid that. But actually, if I even think about the last 6 months for me, my biggest help in business has been sitting with my husband, who does have a real business brain, and my dad, who's a real out-the-box thinker. Don't pay them a cent. I mean, they do get frustrated with me, but I don't pay them a cent. But had I done that, as I said at the beginning, earlier, I probably could have avoided a lot of stress.
Spot on. Hindsight. What a great gift.
Great, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, Ariella, you are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for being on Spark.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, anytime. I'll have you back.
Let's do it again.
Yes.